According to a study by the University of East Anglia, college students could only remember 40% of their high school studies by their first week of university, and the longer between their A levels and their first week of college, the less they remembered. You can't rely solely on memorization, so it's important that you learn new tools to help you study more effectively. And in this episode, we'll cover 4 more study tips so you can study smarter, not harder.
I wish I had enough time to cover everything, but I don't. So I'm going to pick out kind of the most important things and make sure I get to those right off the bat.
According to Oregon State University, there are 2 primary functions in taking notes in class. Firstly, taking notes keeps you alert, attentive, and accountable as you listen, allowing you to pay attention to what the teacher is teaching on a deeper level. Secondly, the notes themselves become a record of what was discussed in class and can later be used for studying and review. According to the same study, students who took notes in class had stronger concentration and had an easier time recalling the information they took notes on, helping them with exam performance.
Taking notes, so vital. But most students who do it haven't learned a very simple rule. The first moment you get after a class, ideally right after the class, you should sit down with your notes and expand on everything you jotted down. Give it depth, flesh it out, okay? If you even wait to go home and do it a couple hours later, you'll have forgotten some of your own notes. Well, that's a wasted note. But if you take the moment right after class to flesh it out, you now have a little more detail. Odds are at night, you can still recollect it. That will be a powerful addition with only about a 5-minute time investment per class. That is a good trade-off.
As for the importance of asking questions, according to the National Library of Medicine, the goal of asking and answering a question is not necessarily to probe a completely untouched area of science. Rather, it should be a personal quest to resolve a curiosity and grapple with trying to understand the answer. Teachers are very receptive to students asking questions, and more likely than not, you are probably not the only person with that question on their mind.
Teachers want students to succeed. Sometimes it isn't perceived that way. We want you to do well. It makes us happy. Let's say you're trying to flesh out your notes. It's like, I remember they said it or he said it, but I don't know what it was about. Look for a classmate. They're usually hanging around. Go up to somebody and say, hey, what was that about? And they can tell you. You come to my office, not just with, I'm not getting anything, but what was that about when you were talking about REM sleep, you know? And I started explaining, that's what my life's about here, okay? We love it. That's a legitimate thing. Or, if you don't want to go to the instructor's office, most of us start up a class, any questions? Yeah, yesterday I didn't quite understand this piece about ontogeny recapitulating phylogeny. Okay, we'll go through that quickly. Once again, we like that. We want you to be successful.
By taking an active part in your own learning, whether it be writing notes or asking questions, you'll see how easily it helps you when it comes to your studying later. While this may seem like a silly study technique compared to the others covered, it actually has great potential to improve grades if used correctly.
It's a nice way of learning. Active recitation. By the way, one piece of research said 80% of your study time is best spent reciting and only 20% reading.
Active recitation is an act of repeating what you learn out loud, similar to reading a paragraph out loud in class. According to a study published in Sage Journals, 2 experiments were conducted with a group of grade 6 students. In the first experiment, the teachers didn't use active recitation, they instead just spoke about the topic with the students. In the second experiment, the teachers made sure to not only incorporate active recitation, but also included asking a follow-up question related to the topic of study, so that the students had to think about what they learned about. The students who actively recited and answered the follow-up questions had an easier time recalling the information that they learned in comparison to the students who did not have the recitation incorporated into their learning.
How many of you know the best way to learn is to teach somebody else? Well, if you've got family members or roommates, teach them geography, psychology, anatomy. They often love it. It's powerful because it reinforces your learning, plus it tells you if you really understood it. Because if mom or dad says, well, I don't quite get that, and you go, I don't understand it either, then very quickly you have to go back and redo it. Now, some of you may not have anybody at home to teach, or they are not interested. Too bad. Teach an empty chair. There's nothing wrong with talking out loud. Thinking is internal talking to a large degree. Now, for some of you, writing it out in your own words is a good thing. I'm lazy. I never liked to do a lot of writing. But I learned very quickly to look at it, look away, and do a little dialogue with myself. Because it told me if I really understood it or not, very quickly.
Let's be honest. Textbooks have always been one of the most brutal aspects of studying. They can be dry and hard to read. Although this may be the case, it doesn't mean they don't have a place in studying.
Most students have not been taught how to use a textbook, and yet it's such a powerful tool. Because they haven't been taught the power of the tool, a large percentage don't even buy the book, in part because they're getting so darn expensive. But students don't know the effective way of using it. How many of you know of SQ3R? Survey, that's the S. Question, that's the Q. Then you have 3 R's. Read, recite, review.
According to Cuesta College, one of the best ways to tackle your assigned textbook readings is to formulate questions about the text and look for the answer. Looking for the answer in the textbook versus just reading the assigned text passively allows you to be more actively involved in your reading, thus making it easier to study the pages in your textbook.
Because we schedule tests, most students don't start studying until shortly before an exam. They put so much time all massed together and only study for about a half hour, pull all-nighters so they don't get the good rest, come in and do poorly. You're undoing yourself. If you start studying early and do some of the things I've talked about, by the time you get to the test, you're just reviewing at that point. You've got to memorize facts. How do you do that? What you use, mnemonics. In my view, they're quicker, easier than rote memorization, and I do use them.
Mnemonics can help with memorization and recall important information in a simple and very easy to understand way. According to UTEP Extended University, mnemonics help students learn concepts and break them down into a simple to recall limerick, acronym, or jingle.
How many of you have learned that you can take letters and form a word of it, using those letters to remember certain facts? Ones that come to my mind, Roy G. Biv. How many of you know about Roy G. Biv? Those are the colors of the rainbow. Now, if you're in an art class, that could be important. If you're taking physics and you're learning about the spectrum of light when it goes through a prism, where you're breaking down light in anything that refracts it out, like a rainbow, you know.
By utilizing these techniques, you'll be able to study smarter, not harder, and ace this school year. Happy learning!